Good evening. I'd like to call our meeting to order tonight, August 10th at 5 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Take off your hats if you have. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I will get a motion to approve agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Moved and seconded somewhere over there. All in favor? Aye. Any discussion? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment? I don't see any names.
No.
Okay, no public comment, so we're going to move straight on to an administrative report on our community housing agency. Superintendent Albertson will introduce.
Yeah. So we have a guest here in Rob Hart, and Rob is here to just talk about some of the housing shortages and maybe some possible solutions. Rob reached out to me. It's probably been a couple months, and we just thought it would be something that would be good on the board agenda, just to give the information to the board that Rob reached out to me with. So this is Rob Hart, and I'll let him do a much better job of introducing himself. So,
Hello, welcome.
Madam Chairman, Superintendent, members of the board, my name is Rob Hart, and I'm the Executive Director of the Bonner Community Housing Agency. Tom asked me to come and talk to you this afternoon about what the agency is doing about the housing crisis. I'm also going to introduce you to the Employer-Directed Workforce Housing Program. We all know that quality housing is hard to find at a price that locals can afford. In the past, the agency has focused on very low income and low income housing, often referred to as affordable housing. The agency will continue those programs, but they're getting harder and harder to do because of the increasing cost of construction and land. But what about locals with good jobs and modest savings who perform critical services in our neighborhoods? What about teachers and school administrators? They are an essential part of the fabric of the community, and yet now they are shut out of the housing market. The reasons are well known. Number one, any reasonably priced home coming on the market is usually snapped up right away by a wealthy out-of-state buyer, sight unseen, with no regard to cost. Many locals who see what's going on offer their properties for sale higher than the appraised value, which then sets a new price threshold above the levels that locals can afford. Resort towns across the nation are troubled by these rising housing prices that bypass the local workforce. But now the agency has taken the lead in solving this dilemma here in Sandpoint by creating the Employer-Directed Workforce Housing Program. Under this program, homes are reverse engineered and deed restricted to be affordable to your employees. There are also variations of the program that include the general public. We have many projects with these new programs underway, and you'll be hearing about them soon. Tonight, I'd like to explain how the program works in case you consider the possibility of building housing for your employees. The basis of the program is that homes should be priced based on what your employees can afford, not what the market will bear. This is not a requirement that we impose on a property owner or a community. It's voluntary, and it creates new housing that exists outside of the market-based housing market. This middle market is where the costs and values can make fiscal sense if we control them carefully. And this middle market is where we can have the greatest impact because the entire region benefits when the middle class is supported. So how does it work? The first step is for an employer who owns land to meet with the agency. We are a nonprofit community housing development organization chartered by the state. We will evaluate your situation and let you know if the program would be a good investment by providing you with customized budgets and site plans, and for the school district, we do that for free. Then you can decide if you want to continue to work with us or use our budgets and site plans to guide you on your own. Each home in our program is built to meet the requirements of a specific class of buyer. We have single-family homes, townhomes, group homes, and twin homes, and all other types of creative, low-density housing, and all homes are custom designed for each project. In some projects, all of the homes follow our program, and in others, only some do. That's up to the landowners and employers. The program is flexible, It doesn't force a buyer into a particular product, and it does not force an employer or landowner to build a certain product. So now I'd like to quickly go over some of the details. We begin by interviewing the employer to get an overview of the project. Here are some questions we might ask. How much land do you have available? How many employees do you want to help? I asked Schweitzer, and they said 150. What is their income range? What type of housing would you like to provide? With that information, we can proceed. In general, we serve households whose income ranges from 50% of median income to 120% of median income. That relates to $20,000 per year to $80,000 per year per household, not per person. Then we calculate a monthly housing allowance for your employee. Let's say the employer has an employee with a household income of $50,000 per year. We divide that by 12, multiply by 30% to get a monthly housing allowance of $1,250 per month. For rentals, we use the Idaho Finance and Housing Association allowance of 35% since renters don't pay property taxes. So in that case, 50,000 divided by 12 times 35% is $1,458 monthly housing allowance for rental. But what this means is that we don't want your employees to pay more than 30 or 35% of their income on housing. There are two general options for employee housing: for rent and for sale. Rental is straightforward. The employee rents the home only while they are employed. They can leave whenever they choose or when they are no longer employed. If an employer sells a home to an employee, that employee is typically required to sell the home back to the employer when their employment ends. In that case, the employer will typically offer a modest annual appreciation rate like CPI so that the employee is building equity as they live in the home. If we're dealing with a home purchase, we then reverse engineer the home price so that it fits into the monthly housing allowance. First, we make a broad assumption, just for the purposes of the formula, that the buyer will put down 20% and finance 80% using a typical 30-year mortgage at current interest rates. If we do that with this sample employee we have who makes $50,000 a year for the whole household, they would qualify for a $296,000 loan, and that leads us to a purchase price of $370,500. But that is the maximum purchase price. The formula is only used to set a price for the home. We understand some buyers are not going to have 20% down. We also understand that not having that down payment makes it harder to afford the home. So we often set that maximum price, and then we actually come in with an actual price that's well below that, so that the employees that you have can afford the homes, depending on the type of financing they're going to get. If we're dealing with a rental, then we use a similar formula to create an affordable rental price. First, we take the monthly rental allowance, then we subtract property management costs, and then we go to the bottom and calculate a very modest profit so that you're not losing money by renting these homes to your employees. What's left is the amount of money that will cover the debt service for a construction loan, and then we can take that number and we create a construction budget from that number. So we actually go backwards and say, now we have a budget, we have the discipline to design and build a home for that price. There's a lot of back and forth in this process. We try to customize the project to meet the employer's human resource and financial goals. The qualifications for buying an income-based home are set by the landowner or employer. Here's some typical ones. You must be gainfully employed or have a job offer. Your income should be within 5% of the 50 to 120% of area median income range. You must occupy the home as your principal residence, and in the case of purchase, at the end of your employment, or if you move, you must sell the home back to the employer with some CPI appreciation. But our income-based local housing program is not just about numbers. The top priority is that our projects respect the environment, and that respect comes in many ways. First, we survey existing trees on a property. We do not clear-cut the site before development. We try to save as many large trees as possible. Second, We set development standards to guide the architectural design. We want our projects to fit into their surroundings. Our homes are not large, but they're not tiny homes. They are no larger than they need to be. Then we create a critical path chart so our projects can stay on track. And our clients love seeing those circles turn green as we make progress. Finally, we offer oversight, quality assurance, and cost control services, which are key to making sure the construction stays true to the business plan. It's a combination of all of these things and more that help make it possible to build quality homes your employees can afford. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes, Gary.
Thank you very much for coming here and talking to us about it. I appreciate it very much. What's the incentive for the landowner initially to participate in this program? And
So-
where does he get his investment in his land?
So we have a couple of landowners we're working with right now, and they come to us and we do what's called a land residual method. So we come up and we prepare the construction budgets based on the income of the people that they're trying to serve. And then we are very cost effective in how we build. We have a great team of people that build very efficiently. And we take the cost, less the sales price, and what's left over goes to the landowner. And the landowner in this case, in both cases, is making substantial profit above the land value that they thought they had by using our program. And some people will say, well, wait a minute, I could build luxury housing instead and make more money. What happens with our program is that because we're using small homes, and because we have very good relationships with the local jurisdictions, City of Ponderay, Bonner County, City of Sandpoint, they come to us, they're asking for us to put their projects into their communities, and we're able to put them in a density that's slightly higher than you'd get with luxury housing. So when you get a few more homes, it balances out the difference in the luxury housing prices. So that's kind of how we do it.
So, and on the rentals, it's really the owner is, whoever the company is that is, helping build. So they would retain ownership
Correct. And
management also.
well, I put in a monthly fee that you would maybe hire somebody.
Hire somebody.
Or have a person on staff that you pay to manage rentals. It really depends on how many you're doing. If it's just a few, you can handle it in-house. If you're dealing with a large number, then you either have a sub-department or you use a management company. The rentals are different. If you sell the home, you immediately get back your construction investment. If you rent them, you're getting it back over time. But that's why we take the construction loan, we convert it to a permanent loan, and then make sure the rent covers the debt service on the permanent loan and gives you a little bit of positive cash flow.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Gary.
Do you have any active projects
Yes, we do.
in this community? You do?
Yes. You'll be hearing about them soon. We have 12 underway right now. 12 that are in the, one that is going through approvals, and 11 others that are going through the planning process where somebody has come to us and said, as I said in here, hey, would you do what you said? Would you do the little site diagram and budget for us? And then they're deciding whether to go forward.
Right.
So we have a lot of teachers and classified employees, who I'm sure would qualify for this, but we don't have any land. I mean,
Yeah.
how does it work for us?
Well, then what we would do is try to find out what your needs are in terms of, from an employment point of view, and then match it up with landowners. I'm working with a couple of projects right now that total, closer to 100 units, where these are landowners, and we don't have employees yet set for these units. I also am dealing with people like Schweitzer who say, I need 150 units. And so what we're doing, we're the implementer who puts those
Matching
together,
them.
and we match the incomes and the product. What happens, though, to be aware as an employer, that's important, is that in order to restrict the housing so that it is only available to your employees and not to the general public at some future date, you have to be the landowner. You
Right.
can't come into one of our projects and say, well, I'd like to put my employees in 10 of these homes, and then when we move out, they're going to sell them back to me. That's discrimination. It's not discrimination if you are the landowner. So we can subdivide chunks of our properties off and say, here, you're going to buy this land and unit. And then you have, with your school district, you all of a sudden have an asset that other school districts don't have, which is employee housing. And that's what we're finding. You look at places like Lake Tahoe and other resort areas, the companies that own, they went around and bought a bunch of old motels back in the 80s and 90s because they saw this coming. And the companies that own employee housing are the ones that are staying open, and the ones that don't have it, they're having to shut down because it's much worse in other resort areas than it is here, but it's getting there. So if you have an interest and you have a number, we can meet with you and interview you just on that basis, and then we have you on our employer side, and then we'll say, well, we have all these land products, and first come, first serve, I guess.
Well,
Yeah.
I was going to say, without getting too deep into the weeds on the conversation yet, I appreciate the information and the overview, and I know that if we do want to take it to the next level, that we would have that next level conversation meeting. And I know Tom has some of your contact information.
Right.
So Gary, is it a quick question
Just
for
one
now?
more question.
Okay.
I read about, I'm not familiar with your model, but I admire it. It sounds really interesting. But I read about another model in a couple other communities that are facing really high costs of living. I think Berkeley, California, and Bend, Oregon have gone another direction. They eliminated single-family zoning.
Right.
They just eliminated it, to try to put more units on each lot.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I think
Little
that
different
we're
conversation.
trying to avoid going that direction. I think we're catching this, maybe just in time, we'll see.
Yeah.
But we're going to try our best to match up and.
Yeah.
answer
Thank
the
you for
questions.
sharing it, though. It's conversation that bears thinking about, and it's definitely an issue for every employer here. So I appreciate your time. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go on to our consent. I'm going to go on to a motion for consent agenda.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to request that items D through H, that involve significant expenditures of public monies for the benefit of those patrons who are either listening or watching and don't have the packet in front of them, be voted on one at a time, separately.
Okay, sure, that works. So I would have an amended consent agenda that involves items A, B, and C. The HR report, payment of bills, fiduciary school fund activity.
Chair Lewis, I would need a second on that.
I need a second on that amended motion.
I second that.
Wait,
You're the
made the
motion.
I made the motion. Okay.
I'll second it. I've got some questions.
Okay. So we have on the floor a motion to approve the amended consent agenda that includes the items A, B, and C.
That was my question. So you left out I, so I'm assuming you want I in there as well.
there's no I.
I don't see it.
There's no,
There's no
Oh.
line behind you.
This is the original email.
how about, no,
I would
he's.
like to amend
he's-
my question to not ask it. Okay, move
You're,
forward.
That's
fine, I'm
approved.
comparing it now.
Nailed it. Okay.
Okay, so we have an amended motion on the floor. Call for a vote.
All in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes. So the consent agenda items A, B, and C have been approved, and we will now look at,
Chair Lewis, can we back up? I
Yes.
have that motion first for amendment D through H, trustee Superger, trustee Williams seconded. That's the vote that was just taken, am I correct? That's what I have written down. I do not have a first or a second on approving the consent agenda A through C.
I make a
So,
motion to approve the consent
no,
agenda.
we were voting on the amended.
I do not
consent.
have a motion to approve or second the consent
That's what
agenda
we were-
A through C. Lonnie did that. I did not have a second.
We thought Lonnie was seconding. We thought Gary had made the motion. Gotcha. Lonnie, would you make an amended motion to hear consent agenda?
I make a
Sorry.
motion to approve the consent agenda items A, B, and C.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank
It's
you.
moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, so the amended motion carries. So now we will address each action item individually. The first one is in your packet as consent agenda D, and it is the dairy proposal. I can hear a motion to approve the dairy proposal.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the dairy proposal as written in the packet.
So
For the
that-
public, it really has to do with the price of milk, what they charge the school, all the schools, the various rates, the various kind of milk and all that kind of stuff.
Correct.
So
Really
we're-
not all that interesting unless you're running one of the school lunch programs.
So we're going to approve the recommended purchase from Terry's Dairy
Correct.
for milk,
For dairy purchases.
dairy
Correct.
purchase, dairy products. yeah.
I'll second that. Is there a motion on the
Moved
floor?
and seconded to approve the dairy proposal. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. That motion passes. So we're going to try and not mess these next. I would like to hear a motion to approve the bids for heating fuel as proposed from Matt Deal, our Facilities Director.
I make that motion that we approve the bidding of heating fuel for, let's see, propane, city service, Valcon,
And-
heating oil, Coleman oil, and city service, Valcon.
Correct.
No.
He's
Those were
made the
the
motion.
bids.
Those
Sorry,
are the
but
bids.
that's not who the award. So in the consent agenda, you're awarding heating fuel in your packet. What was included in your packet specifies all the bids that were received, and then I believe facility director has line itemed out who those bids need to be awarded to. So you're not making a motion to give it to all of those bid submitters.
He has selected one propane vendor, and that's what,
City service, sorry,
Yes.
just point of reference, trustee Superger read off all the bids that were
I
received.
delineated, I said propane, the one that's listed on my packet is city service, Valcon for propane, and Coleman oil and city service, Valcon for heating oil. That's one.
Thank you.
yes.
I'll second that.
No.
So, moved and seconded, and questions from Matt Deal, Facilities Director. And to be fair, it is a little confusing in the packet.
Okay, so I wrote, I would like to request the Board of Trustees award propane and heating fuel bids to City Service Valcon. Propane, heating fuel, heating oil are the two different
Award the propane.
material purchasing,
Right.
and both of them
Correct.
I'm recommending City Service Valcon.
City Service Valcom for both, not Coleman Oil.
Yeah, I'd like to make an amended motion that we approve city service Valcon for both the propane and heating oil service contract for the district for the 21-22 school year.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, motion passes. The third item that I will hear a motion for is the removal of snow removal bid for 21-22 school year as presented in the packet.
I make a motion to approve the snow removal recommendations for the 21-22 school year as presented by Matt Deal.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Point of clarification that he has delineated here the services that will be done at different schools, different areas. And in fact, if I ask Matt Deal, I recognize some of these from our previous snow removal.
That is accurate.
Are there any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, and that motion passes. The next action item that I will hear a motion on is for the bus and support vehicle fuel for 21-22.
Make a motion to approve the accepted bids for support vehicle and fuel from Coleman Oil in Sandpoint and Hayes Chevron in Clark Fork as presented by Mr.
James Kaler.
Taylor.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the bus and support vehicle fuel. I will make a note that it is bids for both diesel fuel and unleaded fuel in both of those cases. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. That motion passes. I will hear a motion for the acquisition of 3 new school buses.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the bid of Harlow's Bus Sales for the purchase of 3 new school buses that include the 3-point seat belts. And I'd like to make the comment that
You do that under
What-
comments.
Okay.
We'll have comments once
second
we get a
that.
motion on it.
So it's moved and seconded. Any discussion, Gary?
yeah, I'd just like to make the comment that I'm relieved that the district has received such competitive bids for buses with seat belts. If our mission is education, our prerequisite to education is safety. We went to great lengths during the pandemic for safety for our students. We go to great lengths every day. We have resource officers. We have single entries to our school. We do a lot of drilling and controlling to our schools to try to make our buildings as safe as possible. And I think having seat belts on our buses is just the next step in improving safety for our students. So I support the recommendation of the seatbelt buses.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. That motion passes. So I believe at this time we have addressed the items in our, those 5 extra action items. And now I will move on. We do have another action item, and it is to hear from our transportation director, James Kaler, to hear about the transportation program.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Sorry for the confusion going on
That's
there
okay.
before.
That was good. We got really competitive bids on those buses, so.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Surprising.
Yeah.
So each year in August, the board is asked to review and approve our transportation program. I know that I've already presented it to you in previous years, so you're very familiar with it. I'm going to go over some changes. Before I do that, though, I just want to talk about a follow-up from our previous board conversation about the misuse of cell phones. Just the follow-up, we talked about doing some signage for buses, and so this year, these are being made, they've been ordered. It just says, help yourself, help others, report bullying or harassment, cell phone, computer misuse, vaping, drug or alcohol use, and then it gives the list of people to report to or our transportation department. So those magnetic signs will be put up in each bus, and I think that's a great start to where we need to be, just because, like I said in the previous meeting, that it wasn't being reported to us. So maybe if we give them the information to report, we'll start seeing more of that in the future, and we can nip it in the bud. Another thing that I'll talk about that's new this year is we did make a route change. It's Route 3 and Route 14, and I'll talk about that when we go over the routes. So first off, the bus route summary. The difference from previous year, as I mentioned, was the change and that's bus route 3 and 3 p.m. and 14 p.m. And those are 2 high school routes. And the reason we did that, we added last year when we switched over transporting middle school and high school together in the afternoon, taking them off the elementary buses, we had to add a half route. It was a PM route. And it went from the high school to Sago, Conoco to transfer high school students. But Route 3 in the morning goes out in Kootenai direction, and the north side of the highway up that way. And so it geographically, having Route 3 go this way and this way, we just thought it would make more sense to put Route 3 both going to the north and put 14 going to Sago, Conoco. That was the only reason. It was just a geographical, a more appealing way to rename those routes. So that was the only difference between that, is because we added that route last year because of COVID.
Okay.
Aside from that, I don't have any other changes from the previous year. The numbers of projected students, we were down a bit from previous years last year, but not a lot. I think our average, our average in the previous year was right around 915. This year during COVID, we were about 836 on student ridership, average ridership. So we didn't take a big hit on ridership despite the pandemic. Are there any questions on the bus route summary? Okay.
So just to clarify, the routes are the same, you just renamed one route.
Correct. Yeah, the routes did not change, we just flipped the numbers. So,
Okay.
on the bus routes themselves inside the packet here, they do reflect on the very last page where it summarizes where everything goes. It also talks about how Route 3 changes to Route 14.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yep.
On the safety busing, we are going to be reviewing that. We review safety busing every 3 years to ensure that they still meet the benchmark as a safety busing area. I'm very confident that when we review them in May of 2022, that just due to the increase in traffic alone, those safety busing areas will still be safety busing areas, but we haven't reviewed those since 2019. So those will be reviewed next year in April and May timeframe.
Okay.
The school bus turnaround locations, there is only one addition. Nothing else changed. We didn't remove any school bus turnarounds. We did add Heath Lake Road at the railroad track because they took it out. They took out the road, so you can't get to Highway 95. So they've been talking about this for several years. The railroad has been kicking it down the road for a little bit, saying we're going to close it, we're going to close it, we're going to close it, and finally Bonner County Road and Bridge closed it, and they're in the process of constructing a hammerhead turnaround to accommodate the bus. So the bus will go down to the end of Heath Lake Road where the railroad track is, turn around into Hammerhead, and go back out and go to the school out through Algona. So, so that would be a change for Route 24.
I have a question on
Yes.
that. The railroad crossing was closed because it was unsafe. So why would we want to have a bus turn around right there if it's unsafe?
Well, it's not going to be crossing. I don't know all the safety criteria that it didn't meet. I know it came up at a weird angle.
Yeah.
And then you had to cross it.
The hammerhead's going to be on Highway 95.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Off of
No.
Algoma Spur. Okay.
Yeah,
That was really
yeah,
confusing.
no.
Like, why are we making it? Okay.
Yeah, no, the Hammerhead is on the other side of the track.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
I'm killing it today.
Payments in lieu, we're expecting 5, and that list is there. And those are all just areas that we just can't get within the 1.5 miles, and so we pay the inlet.
Okay. Which actually, that number seems kind of in keeping with, we always have a small number like that.
Yeah, it ranges between 5 and 10 every
Yeah.
year, so it's fairly low this year.
Yeah.
The daycare facilities served, we took off Superior Child Care, which has closed, and we added Children's Learning Center and Play and Learn, because those were added this previous year. So we lost a daycare facility that we're serving, but we added 2.
Where, do you know the addresses of those 2 yet?
Yes, So the Children's Learning Center is off of Superior, down
Oh,
by the
so
Conoco.
It's in town,
It's
yeah.
in town?
Yeah.
And the Play and Learn is off of Division and Pine.
Okay.
So it's right there.
They're
on the
both
corner.
close, yeah.
They're right there in town.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
And that concludes the transportation program. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Are there any questions from the board?
I'm staying
Yeah,
quiet.
thank you. You need a motion
So
to
there
approve
is, we do need a motion to approve this program.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the 2021-22 district transportation program as
Second.
presented.
Seconded. Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? No, I should ask that first. All in favor, none opposed, and that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, James.
Yep. And thanks for all the safe work that all your drivers do. Please pass on our appreciation to your staff and drivers
Yes.
of the excellent work they do.
Absolutely, I will. Thanks.
So we have a award of architectural, other professional services from Facilities Director Matt Deal.
Good evening.
Hello.
So back in June, you approved
Yes,
soliciting
going through this.
proposals
Yep.
for architectural services. Clerk Fisher posted properly. We actually emailed and asked for some proposals. We received 3. A team of 4 reviewed those, and we're recommending awarding the contract to Longwell Traffic Architects. Any questions or want more information?
How many projects do you anticipate are going to need architectural services?
I think we could probably bundle it into, thinking budget depending, maybe 13.
Probably looking at 12 or something.
Yeah, it was in the
So like if we do,
first bid.
there's different projects that'll go well together.
Uh-huh.
So like at Southside, for example, there's a new ventilation system in the gymnasium, but some of the digital controls for the rest of the building also need updated. So naturally, those projects would be lumped together into
Uh-huh.
one project.
Right.
So there's way more projects than 12 to 13, but as I go through the
That could be
list and
bundled.
start coupling things together, now once we start working with the architect, the mechanical engineer, and electrical engineer, they might have different ideas on how to combine those projects. And that's what their expertise is to
Why
help
we're
us.
paying.
Okay.
And what's the time frame on this?
So we hope to negotiate terms and
Was the finished product once they
finish
get the
project. Hopefully we'll
contract?
be banging away on stuff next summer. Yeah. And if there's some small projects we can get to during the school year without disrupting anything, then the architect indicates they'd be interested in that.
Okay.
You indicated previously, you've got some smaller projects that you anticipate doing with your own staff.
Oh,
Yeah.
Then for our in-house projects, we've got the touch-free restroom project.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in the process, we're down to 3 schools installing the touch-free soap dispensers.
Mm-hmm.
The touch-free paper towel dispensers we're told, on a rail car someplace. So as soon as those come in, we'll start installing. The faucets are ordered. When they come in, we'll start installing those. We've installed about a dozen fresh air ventilator units on specific portables that had no ventilation. Those 12 units are done. This is in-house. Our team is in the process of adding some fresh air ducting to about 6 or 8 other spaces. And that's in the works and will be done before school starts also.
Excellent.
Okay, well, thank you. So I would hear a motion. on the Board of Architectural Other Professional Services.
I'd like to make the motion that we award for the award of architectural and other professional services to, you said
Longwell Trapp.
Longwell.
Longwell Trapp.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. That motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I'm going to go on with the agenda for COVID protocols and turn it over to Superintendent Albertson.
Yes, thank you, Chair Lewis. So you have previously approved the 21-22 operational plan, which can be found on the Lake Pend Oreille School District website. There was one part that Trustee Kelly brought up last time, and that was on contact tracing. So really, I have no amendments or not going through your already approved plan, but I do want to talk a little bit just about amending our COVID school guidelines when there is a positive in the school. And so what we had done previously last year with our plan is if you had an individual that did test positive, they needed to isolate at home and needed to be out of school 10 days. And then we did some contact tracing to determine who was a close contact. This new proposal is to say that a positive COVID test still would need to stay out of school for 10 days. If there was an exposure in the household, so you were living in the same household as a positive, that student would still need to stay out 10 days, but then other students then would just be notified. There would be a notification to the parents that there had been a positive and please watch your students for symptoms. And we would not be disrupting as much education as we did last year. So this is the part in the plan that I said that contact tracing would come later in August. So you can, this is what I have here. I'll entertain questions from you. And it could be an action item tonight, or it could be an action item at our next board meeting.
I'd like to say I support your analysis and proposal, and I'm prepared to make a motion that the board approve, the revised COVID school guidelines.
Our goal again is to have the fewest disruptions of education possible, but that's where we are. But I think then this is just more of a mainstream than the contact tracing that we did last year.
Yeah, let me just see if, hold on.
Do you think it'd be better maybe to wait a month to do this, or things may change, but and I'm happy with it the way it is. But,
Yeah.
I would like to have something approved before the start of the school year, just because it gives parents a sense of where we're heading. Are there other questions on these guidelines for, I saw you shaking your head, Pearlie. Do you have any questions for Tom?
No, I don't.
No? I like it because it basically follows what we have in place for our other contagious infectious diseases. And I know that that's what Lonnie was referencing, that in the case with any of those situations, we notify families and ask them to monitor their own children. I think that if we find out that, we're having massive outbreaks in classrooms, we would have to reevaluate the success of what we're doing. But I feel like all of us.
I think that the most important thing here, just like we talked about last year and probably every year prior to COVID being a thing with every other ailment, kids have to speak up and parents have to listen and keep your kids home if they're sick. Just like if it was the flu or anything else. That's what's going to keep us from having big jumps. So I think that's how we should operate.
So Gary started a motion.
I made the motion.
And is
that
there-
we approve the revised COVID school guidelines for the 21-22 school year.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion?
No, ma'am.
Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, so that motion passes. I think it sets us up to start the school year as
So
positively as possible. Tom, is there any other update on this topic that you want to, this time?
Not at this
Okay.
time, no.
Okay.
So, I mean, do we have any concern with the Delta variant in our community?
Not-
At this time.
Not yet.
Sure.
I mean,
I mean, I
Do we
would
have
say, yeah. I mean,
we don't have anyone in
but-
school, so it's very hard for us to say
Right.
how it's impacting our students.
You know, to say that I'm
population.
glad that we're not starting school for a month is,
Yeah.
I'm glad we're not starting till after September, you know, after Labor Day. That's good to see what happens in our community, but bottom line is I spent some time in Boise. I've talked to a lot of school districts, and you know, I think our plan is reasonable. I do agree with Trustee Williams that it's a partnership with parents, and the best thing to do is for parents to monitor their own students' health, and if there's any symptoms of not feeling well, it's always best for the parents to keep the kids home. And that's really the best thing what we can do. So, yeah. So, yeah, I will watch things, I read things, but bottom line is that I feel good that this can kind of complete our plan, and then, you know, as a board, yeah, we do have local control of what we do in our district, so.
Right. So, are there any other announcements from administrators? I see a few back there. Go ahead.
Come up with the next day.
You can stand right there.
Just a few, obviously, I'm back on contract, so a few pieces of information to share with you. Right now, current enrollment at San Point High School only is 1,023, so that's just above where we were at the end of last year, and 278 of those are freshmen, so a large incoming freshman class, if you'd be interested in knowing that. We have 277 registered for fall sports right now. Practices just started yesterday, so you'll probably see a whole lot of tired kids around town. We hired 8 new staff this year, and that's not including for food services or custodial, so hopefully they can all find a place to live and they will stay. The region hired a whole lot a whole lot more administrators as well, so I'll have my first chance to meet the new administrators in the region this Thursday at our first regional principals meeting, and just so you are aware, our office law returns on Monday, and San Point High School doors not for students, but in general, we'll open up for more and more on week today, so that's all I have.
Thank you. Cool, Miles. Is there anyone else I can't see? Administrator? Andra? Andra, do you have anything from curriculum? No? Okay. Melinda, do you have any report?
Yeah, the Homeschool Academy, we have 11 new students registered so far. On the 18th, I'm doing another new family orientation, and I have 6 families already registered to show up for that, so I have a feeling every seat will be filled this year. I think we'll start the year at about 125 students.
Nice.
So pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I do have another announcement.
And Superintendent Albertson?
Yes, I would like to introduce to the board the newest reporter for the Daily Bee, and that is Emily Bosong.
Bonsanta's fine.
It looks like Bosant, but it is Bosong, and Emily will be covering education in our community, and I had a chance to meet her at the office the other day, and I just
Great.
want to welcome Emily, and thank you for your service.
Yep. I saw her taking notes there. I figured it was for something official. Nice to meet you. Is there any other announcements? With that, I will hear a motion to move to executive.
I make a motion that we move to executive session as provided for in Idaho Code Title 74, Section 206, subsection 1B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent, or public school student, to communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications of and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated, but imminently likely to be litigated. The mere presence of legal counsel at an executive session does not satisfy this requirement.
Second. Nice story.
Moved and seconded. Roll call,
Roll
vote.
call vote, trustee Kelly.
Aye.
Trustee Superger.
Aye.
Trustee Decker.
Aye.
Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Chair Lewis.
Aye.
Thank you, motion passes.
With that, we're in executive session. Thank you, everyone.